Ladies and gentlemen, I think the fear of the country is that there will be an ANC EFF coalition. And I think everybody's fear really idea that what will happen is that the ANC and the EFF will find common ground. And in finding common ground, they will attack us as citizens of the state, whether that be through high taxes, whether it be through expropriation without compensation, or any form of other tyrannical rule. However, what we are seeing in EFF ANC municipalities where they have formed a coalition is that those coalitions are now falling apart. This comes as news now released in the Citizen shows that the ANC and the EFF are no longer able to find common ground, even though they have essentially created a axis of evil in order to control municipalities and metros around the country. Joining me to talk about this is Ramon. Hello, Ramon.
To give you a bit of context, remember after the 2021 elections, the ANC and the EFF had a plan, right? The ANC would take over Johannesburg and the EFF would take over Acc. ANC controlled Joburg after they ousted Mpopalatse, but when it came to giving the EFF Acc, that didn't materialize because there was conflict between Panyaza Sufi, the Premier of Gauteng, and the National ANC, who didn't really want to work with Julius Malema. So that plan failed. So the new plan was, and the plan in place right now is, we're going to have a puppet proxy mayor, and then the ANC and the EFF will control the MMCs. And that is what is currently happening right now in Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni. The real flaw, Byron, as you can tell, is that the mayor is a proxy. So the mayor actually has no leadership potential or qualities because he is beholden to both the ANC and the EFF. And because of that, the mayor cannot show leadership when it is required, especially in terms of like this issue of the missing dump trucks. So I don't know how long this sort of coalition strategy is going to last for both the ANC and the EFF because it is very rocky at the moment.
Yeah, it is rocky. The problem is that whenever you get these type of coalition type agreements, there's never any real kind of insurance that these things are all going to work, which actually brings us on to our sponsor of today's show, which is us. So we have our own insurance broker, and what we do is we look at the market and get for you a better price in order to make sure that you have the best coverage for your insurance policies. So if you have an insurance policy and you want to scour the market and you wish to come back and see if we can get you a better deal, drop us a line on ramon@morningshot.co.za. That's ramon@morningshot.co.za, and we will talk to you and see if we can beat that quote. So yes, the problem with the proxy mayors is that, to be frank, they need to set the tone for the different council meetings and deploy their MECs to do their relevant jobs. Now, the idea behind the ANC and the EFF original coalition agreements is that the MECs would cooperate and do their own kind of thing and almost self-regulate in order to do their job, with the proxy mayor basically being there to not really tell them what to do, but kind of just to oversee it and be the figurehead. That works in principle, but it doesn't work in practice because what essentially happens is that different MECs have to work with each other. And those MECs may end up within conflict and they need the mayor to resolve the conflict. Well, what happens when the mayor has no power? And what happens when two MECs conflict with each other? What happens when the one MEC is an ANC guy and the other one is the EFF guy? Well, the reality of the situation is what actually happens is we get backbiting and the two bicker. And that bickering eventually turns sour, which leads to a coalition collapse, which is what we are now seeing between the ANC and the EFF.
And I think it's important to see, I mean, they're literally fighting over how many garbage trucks there are in the municipality, right? Literally, that is the crux of the issue. How many garbage trucks there are. The EFF says there were 102, but now they only count 32, whereas the ANC says, no, there are 102, but 70 are out for like a service or something like that. They can't even agree on how many garbage trucks there are. And this goes to show, and I really want people to really understand this. The next 5 years, maybe even 10 years of South African politics is this coalition bickering. We know very well, like the Rainbow Coalition, the Moonshot Pact is a little bit on the rocks at the moment, but that doesn't mean the ANC and the EFF coalition is any stronger. They both have their fault lines, and sooner or later, something or someone has to come out, provide the leadership necessary to keep a coalition together. And looking at the landscape of political parties and looking at the landscape of politics in South Africa, we don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
No, it's very difficult to actually form any form of coherent government whereby everybody can kind of agree to a set standard in order to actually get anything achieved in South Africa. And to a large degree, the reason for that is because a lot of the political parties are only really there for the grift. Problem with the grift is that everybody wants the grift, right? Everybody wants the patronage, but the patronage isn't big enough to go around all the houses. So as a result, everybody kind of wants the fame, the privilege, the position. But in turn, that is causing the conflict between parties. So what we're seeing a variety of musical chairs whereby it's like, well, I can give you the grift this week. You're going to do nothing for it. Next week, I'm going to chuck you out because you didn't do anything. And then I can get the grift, right? So it's just kind of musical chairs. Now, the reality is, what will that mean for the average South Africans? Well, what it actually will mean is that the state will continue to be inept. It will actually continue to be useless and will continue to degrade. And we think that that's a good thing because, to quote Douglas Wilson, the problem with modern society is that the state's too strong. Let us not forget that the American Revolution was actually fought. They threw off the yokes of an entire monarch over a 2% tax increase. And in modern times, we're getting taxed like nearly 45% for a state that actually doesn't actually provide anything to us. So what's going to continue to happen is the state in this country will continue to shrink. The ability for it to provide things will continue to decrease. On the plus side, and this is the great big plus side, it will leave a vacuum, and that vacuum will be filled either by communities in the shape of Orania or will be filled in the shape of the private sector. But that vacuum will be created. However, in the meantime, it's going to look kind of chaotic. And in that chaos, there is hope, because the hope is, well, basically the government can't get any more tyrannical and more stronger to you. They can't even agree over how many dump trucks there are. I really wouldn't worry about the rest of it.
Yeah, and ironically, I mean, South Africa is not in a weird position. Look at any coalition government in Israel. They've had like 4 in the last 4 years, I believe. Sweden suffers with the same thing. A lot of governments all over the world struggle with this coalition stuff. I remember Belgium didn't have a government for like close to 10 months at one stage in their lifetime. And Belgium was actually better off for it, if we are really honest with ourselves. The difference between those countries and South Africa is that we don't have a sort of deep state, right? We don't have a bureaucratic state that can run without any leadership. South Africa is a mafia for the most part. And if people can't agree on who the head of the mafia is at any given time, the mafia sort of shutters down. It sort of closes down. And that is the best option we have here. So messy coalitions equals good for you, believe it or not.
Yeah, we know this doesn't make sense to the average individual. You're going to look at it and be like, okay, these guys are constantly bickering and everything's falling apart and nothing works. Yeah, it's true. But there's joy in that. There's joy in that it releases state control. We need less state control. The problem in modern life is that there's too much state control. So if you look at it, like, the benefit here is that, as I said at the start of the video, everybody's worried that the ANC and the EFF will find common ground. They'll find each other on issues. And once they do that, they're going to galvanize a force. And that force will be used as a blunt trauma instrument against the population of South Africa. And the joy here is that doesn't look like it's going to happen. On the counter side, it doesn't look like you're going to get your potholes fixed either, right? So, there's a plus and a minus here. The plus is these guys aren't going to find common ground. So even if in 2024, which we still don't believe that's going to be the case, that they do sign a coalition agreement of some variety, the reality is it's going to be short-lived. And even if they do try to go through Parliament, they're not going to agree on anything, mate. Like, they can't even agree on dump trucks. Come on, man.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I mean, I think the only hope for South Africa is for Gayton to become like supreme leader, as he wants to be, right? Suspend the constitution. That will maybe keep South Africa together for a sort of a period of time. But the only alternative to that, and I think that is very unlikely to happen in the first place, by the way, the only alternative to a very strong person in charge of the state is, well, for the state to break up. And that's exactly what is happening before our eyes. And that is exactly what is happening as we have described it on this channel for the longest period of time. So, yeah, nothing more to add, really. Coalitions are messy. Get used to it. In other words, ignore them and build your own stuff. Very simple.
And you're going to have to build your own stuff because the state ain't going to be there to control it or even be able to provide it for you. So you're going to have to step in and take control of your own destiny. And for me, I found that far more exciting than being told by, Jacinda Ardern what I must declare my pronouns as. Like, come on, guys. Like, this is far more exciting. Africa's a great place to live.
Yeah. Compare and contrast. Everywhere else, you got problems of the state. Here we have problems of the state, which are no longer going to be problems anymore. We're just going to solve them ourselves, and the state won't be able to stop us. So, really, why move anywhere else in the world? Thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.